I stared at Vivian across the dinner table. My jaw clenched tightly as the family chatter faded into a dull murmur around me. The smell of Mom's famous pot roast usually brought me comfort, but tonight the rich aroma only fueled my rising anger. "So, did you enjoy stealing my project idea and presenting it as your own?" I blurted out, unable to hold back any longer. Vivian's fork clattered against her plate, and she looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes that had haunted me since we were kids. "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," I shot back, my voice rising. "The marketing campaign for the new app, that was my concept. You swooped in and took all the credit." Vivian scoffed and shook her head, her perfectly coiffed hair remaining unnaturally still. "You're delusional, Alara. That idea was mine from the start." Nate reached over and squeezed my hand under the table, a silent show of support. Of course, my little brother had my back. He always did. "That's a lie, and you know it," I growled, leaning forward. Mom's eyes darted between us, her expression pained. "Girls, please, can we not do this tonight? It's supposed to be a celebration." "For what?" I snapped. Vivian's ability to stab me in the back? Vivian slammed her hand on the table, making the silverware rattle. "You're just jealous that I'm better at my job than you'll ever be." A shocked silence fell over the table as her words hung in the air. I opened my mouth to respond, but Nate caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. Right. I wouldn't let her bait me into an emotional outburst. Not this time. I'd expose her for the snake she was, but I had to be smart about it. Straightening my shoulders, I met Vivian's gaze steadily. "This isn't over," I warned, my voice low and even. She smirked, clearly thinking she'd won this round. But she was wrong. Dead wrong. The game was just beginning. As soon as I got home from that disastrous family dinner, I grabbed my phone and made the first of what would be many calls that night. Nate answered on the second ring. "You were right to stop me from going off earlier," I said without preamble. "Vivian would have just twisted it around to make me look unhinged." "Exactly," he agreed. "She's a pro at playing the victim. We need to be smarter than that if we're going to take her down." My grip tightened on the phone. I can't believe she flat out lied to everyone's faces like that. After what she did to me at work. I trailed off, the white-hot fury bubbling up again. "I know, sis, it was a low blow, but we'll make her pay." Nate's words kindled a fresh determination within me. He was right. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about holding Vivian accountable for a lifetime of lies and sabotage. We spent the next few hours on a flurry of phone calls, reaching out to aunts, uncles, cousins, anyone who might be willing to stand with us against Vivian's twisted machinations. Some were easily convinced after I laid out the evidence, like our Aunt Jenna, who had always been wary of Vivian's ambition. "That girl's been a snake since she was in diapers," she drawled. "You can count me in." Others, like our cousin Derek, were more reluctant. "I don't know, Alara. Vivian's always seemed solid to me. You sure you're not overreacting?" I practically growled into the phone. "You really think I'd make something like this up? After how hard I've worked to get where I am? She stabbed me in the back, Derek, plain and simple." There was a heavy pause before he sighed. All right. You know I've got your back, cuss." By the time the sun began peeking over the horizon, I had a solid crew of family members ready to help tear Vivian down. It was a start, but I knew we'd need more to make any real impact. I was just gearing up to make another round of calls when there was a sharp rap at my front door. I flung open the door, revealing Nate on my doorstep with a grim expression. "We've got a problem," he said without preamble. I stepped aside to let him in, my stomach twisting with dread. "What is it?" He ran a hand through his tousled hair. "I just got off the phone with Uncle Marcus. Apparently, there's some new development with Grandpa Harrison's will." A leaden weight settled in my gut as the implications sank in. If Vivian was set to inherit anything from our increasingly frail grandfather, it would make taking her down that much harder. "Well, spill it," I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady. Nate shook his head grimly. "From what Marcus could gather, Grandpa's lawyers are pushing for Vivian to get a bigger cut of the inheritance than the rest of us. Sole ownership of the lake house up north, plus a nice chunk of cash." White-hot rage lanced through me. "You've got to be kidding me. After everything she's done, she doesn't deserve a damn thing." I know. I know. Nate held up his hands in a placating gesture. But you know how cunning she can be. Who knows what lies she's been feeding Grandpa behind the scenes? I sank onto the couch, feeling utterly deflated. Of course, Vivian would find a way to worm her way into the will. She always did. How were we supposed to compete with that? Nate must have sensed my despair because he crouched in front of me, gripping my shoulders firmly. Hey, listen to me. This just means we have to hit her that much harder, okay? Drag every last ugly secret out into the open until no one can ignore what a lying, manipulative snake she is. His fiery determination was contagious, stoking the vengeful flames within me once more. He was right. We couldn't let this derail us. If anything, it made exposing Vivian that much more crucial. I straightened my spine, newfound resolve thrumming through my veins. You're right. We just need to play dirtier than she does. A feral grin spread across Nate's face. That's my girl, so what's the plan? Over the next few hours, we hashed out a strategy. With Nate's help, I wasted no time putting our plan into motion. First step, gather as much dirt on Vivian as possible to use against her. We hit up every family member and old friend, digging into her past with a fine-toothed comb. The stories that trickled in painted an ugly picture. Lying, cheating, backstabbing. It was like Vivian had been preparing her whole life to be a world-class snake. Remember when she stole Jamie Lawson's boyfriend in high school? My cousin Maya chimed in during one late-night gossip session. Pulled some crazy move where she pretended to be pregnant with his kid. Completely psycho. Or how about when she tanked Claire's job interview just because she was jealous Claire got into a better college? Nate added with a scowl. Each fresh anecdote made my blood boil hotter. There was no limit to how low Vivian would stoop to get what she wanted. Well, this time, I was going to make sure she didn't win. While Nate worked his magic digging up the family skeletons, I focused my energy on gathering ammunition from the work front. I knew for a fact that Vivian's marketing campaign idea wasn't her first offense. She'd been undermining me for years, taking credit for my hard work while pushing me aside at every turn. Late nights at the office digging through file archives paid off in spades. I found email trails documenting her sabotage efforts, records of her client pitches that were suspiciously similar to my own. The hits just kept on coming. By the time we regrouped, I had a full dossier of evidence detailing years of corporate betrayal, enough to bury that two-faced witch 10 times over if I played my cards right. This is perfect, Nate said, rifling through the incriminating files with a wolfish grin. With this plus all the family drama, we can crucify her in front of everyone. Exactly. I matched his feral expression, a twist of savage satisfaction in my gut. She's not going to know what hit her. We put the word out for an emergency family meeting later that week, telling just enough people to ensure the news would reach Vivian's ears. She deserved a chance to show up and plead her case, after all. Not that it would do her any good. In the days leading up to the meeting, I could practically taste revenge on the air, that deliciously bittersweet tang filling my lungs with each breath. After years of watching Vivian slither her way to the top by sinking her fangs into anyone who dared stand in her way, she was finally going to get her due, and I was going to be the one to deliver it. The night before the big family meeting, I barely slept a wink. My mind raced with a million different scenarios as I went over my game plan one final time. I had the evidence locked and loaded. A literal paper trail documenting every lie, every sabotage, every dirty trick Vivian had ever pulled. I'd blow that smug smirk right off her face when I finally exposed her for the venomous snake she was. Still, a nagging kernel of doubt wouldn't leave me alone. What if she somehow twisted the truth again? Turned the family against me like she always did? My hands clenched into tight fists at the thought. Not this time. I had to play this perfectly. First, Light found me redialing Nate's number. He picked up on the third ring, voice still thick with sleep. Alara, what time is it? Listen, I need to go over everything one more time, I said in a rush. I can't screw this up, Nate. I just can't. He must have heard the edge of desperation in my tone because all grogginess disappeared from his voice. Of course. Walk me through it. I took a deep, steadying breath and launched into my meticulously constructed plan of attack. When to unveil the evidence, how to counter any of Vivian's possible defense narratives, which family members we could rely on for backup. Nate jumped in at all the right moments, poking holes and bolstering weak spots until we had it absolutely airtight. "She's not going to know what hit her," he said confidently after we'd been over it a dozen times. "You've got this in the bag, sis." His words finally managed to settle my frayed nerves. Nate was right. Vivian didn't stand a chance against the tsunami of proof I was about to unleash. We hung up, and as I made a final breakfast of dry toast and bitter black coffee, my nerves too twisted up for anything more, a sudden notion struck me. What if not everyone in Arafa Ili was solidly on our side? I immediately fired off a group text rallying the troops, triple-checking where everyone's allegiances lay. One by one, the supportive replies trickled in. Until I got to Derek's message. "Yeah, I dunno, Alara. Vivian and I are pretty tight." Icy tendrils of dread snaked their way through my veins as I stared at the accursed words on my screen. What was that weaselly little snake up to? I thought Derek was with us. New doubts began eating away at my resolve as I imagined other secret Vivian loyalists hiding in our ranks. How could I lay out all my cards at the meeting if I couldn't be sure who had my back? My finger hovered over the button to call Nate again, but I stopped myself. No, I couldn't start second-guessing everything now, not after all this time and effort. Derek's simpering words were probably just Vivian working her mind games again, trying to shake my confidence. Well, she picked the wrong target this time. I was seeing this mission through to the bitter end, no matter what underhanded tricks she tried. Squaring my shoulders, I headed out to face my destiny. Vivian was going down, and there was nothing she or anyone else could do to stop me. The stuffy air of Grandpa Harrison's living room felt thick enough to choke on as I watched my extended family file in one by one. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. Nate gave my arm a reassuring squeeze as we found seats near the front. All around us, hushed whispers and sidelong glances made the tension palpable. They knew something was coming, but no one could anticipate the bombshell I was about to drop. Finally, the last straggler took their seat, and an expectant hush fell over the room. I rose to my feet, back ramrod straight, and zeroed in on Vivian skulking near the back. "I think we all know why we're here today," I said, letting my gaze blaze over the assembled crowd. "It's time to expose Vivian for the lying, manipulative snake that she is." A startled murmur rippled through the room as I locked eyes with my traitorous cousin. To her credit, she didn't flinch, just met my stare with that infuriatingly smug look she always got right before trying to slither her way out of trouble. Not this time. Tugging a thick manila envelope from my tote, I brandished it like a weapon. In here, I have proof of every underhanded tactic, every sabotage effort, every dirty trick Vivian has pulled to get ahead, at work, in her personal life, you name it. Lies, cheating, stealing ideas. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in as I saw the first flickers of unease break through Vivian's mask. "Someone wants to fill in any blanks before I start putting it all out there?" I asked, raising an eyebrow in challenge. The silence hung heavy, punctuated only by the creak of shifting bodies. Vivian's eyes went wide, frantically searching the crowd, looking for allies, no doubt, but she wouldn't find any among the faces turned towards me, rapt with horrified fascination. When no one spoke up to defend her, I gave a grim nod. "All right, then. Who wants to go first?" I spent the next torturous hour methodically dismantling Vivian's pristine image brick by brick. Her past cheating scandals, the vicious bullying in high school, her corporate backstabbing, it all came spilling out into the open, immutable proof backing up every transgression. With each new revelation, the mood in the room shifted from shock to anger to outright disgust. Vivian's composed facade crumbled as a very different portrait emerged. A spiteful, selfish woman who would stop at nothing to get whatever she wanted. By the time I got to the evidence of her undermining me at work, the tension was like a tightly coiled snake, ready to strike at any moment. "You see?" I fixed Vivian with a look of pure loathing. "You're not the hotshot success story you pretend to be. You're just a two-faced, lying snake who slithers over anyone who gets in her way." Vivian's mouth worked soundlessly, eyes wild as she tried to find an out. When none appeared, the fight seemed to go out of her all at once. Shoulders sagging in defeat, she looked up at me with naked hatred. I hope it was worth it, she spat, voice dripping with venom. Congratulations, you got your revenge, but you'll never be anything more than a jealous, bitter failure. Enough! The commanding bellow silenced Vivian mid-sentence as Grandpa Harrison pushed his way through the crowd, face ruddy with fury. He jabbed a gnarled finger at Vivian, furious gaze sweeping over his assembled descendants. Is what she said true? A ragged murmur of somber agreement rippled through the room. Grandpa's eyes bored into Vivian, disappointment and disgust etched into every wrinkle. Then you'll get nothing, not a damn cent. A shocked silence fell over the room as Grandpa's words hung in the air. Vivian's face drained of all color, mouth working soundlessly like a landed fish. But, she finally sputtered, shooting me a venomous glare, she's lying, twisting everything around, like she always does. I tensed, ready to unleash a fresh volley of proof, but Grandpa raised a hand, quieting me. The evidence speaks for itself, he said, tone laced with weary disappointment. And from what I've seen here today, you've brought shame upon this family with your despicable actions. Vivian looked around wildly, desperately seeking an ally. But the disgust was plain on everyone's faces. No one was coming to her rescue this time. With a choked sound of outrage, she turned on her heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. An uneasy silence lingered in her wake. I opened my mouth, not entirely sure what to say, when Grandpa fixed me with an inscrutable look. That goes for the rest of you, too, he said, voice raising to carry through the room. If any more skeletons come out of the family closet, you'll be left with nothing but the clothes on your backs when I'm gone. I won't enable dishonorable behavior in this family. Not anymore. A murmur of fervent head-nodding and reassurances rippled through the crowd. I shot Nate a bewildered look, but he just gave a small shrug, eyes wide. The threat seemed to placate Grandpa, and he settled back into his armchair with a weary sigh. Very well. I think we could all use a moment to collect ourselves after such an ugly display. One by one, the other attendees filed out in silence, leaving just Nate, me, and the indomitable family patriarch. Finally, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I can't believe you actually did it, I blurted out, equal parts awed and unsettled. Cutting Vivian out of the will like that? I never thought you'd go that far. Grandpa fixed me with that steely blue-eyed gaze that had instilled fear and respect in generations of our family. Perhaps I've been too lenient in the past, allowed toxic behaviors to fester instead of snuffing them out like I should have. His mouth tightened into a grim line, but no more. If this family is to heal, there must be accountability. I swallowed hard, feeling an odd sense of kinship with the old man in that moment. Here we both were, fighting the same fight, just using different methods. What happens now? Nate ventured tentatively. Grandpa seemed to deflate before our eyes, the weight of his years crashing down. Now? He sighed, gaze turning inward. Now, we try to pick up the pieces. I caught Nate's eye, a silent message passing between us. Though the battle may have been won, the war was far from over. There would be many more pieces to pick up before we reached the end of this long, sordid road. In the weeks following Grandpa's bombshell announcement, an uneasy truce seemed to settle over the family. Vivian had gone to ground, licking her wounds in private after her stunning fall from grace. I tried not to gloat too openly, but it was hard to suppress my vindicated smirk whenever her name came up. There was still plenty of awkward tiptoeing around certain subjects, of course. Old grievances didn't just evaporate overnight. But at least now there was the promise of actual consequences if anyone else's dirty laundry came to light. I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a petty thrill out of seeing some of my cousins eye each other with thinly veiled suspicion at family gatherings. Let the paranoia reign for a while. They all deserved to sweat a bit after the hell Vivian had put me through. Speaking of the devil herself, it was almost a month before she finally slithered out of whatever rock she'd been hiding under. I was half dozing on the couch, binging some trashy reality show, when my phone pinged with an unmistakable number. Vivian. We need to talk. I rolled my eyes so hard it was practically audible. Of course she wouldn't just slink off into oblivion gracefully. I have nothing to say to you. Cut the self-righteous crap, Alara. You wanted revenge? You got it. I'm broke. The family hates me. My whole life is in ruins. Congratulations. Vivian, But if you think for 1 second that I'll just sit back and let you relish in your stupid little victory, you're dumber than I thought. The threats didn't exactly sting. I'd been the target of Vivian's petty torments for far too long to be rattled now. Still, a part of me couldn't resist tweaking the snake's tail just a little. Me, what are you going to do exactly? Expose some deep, dark secret about me? Newsflash, Viv, I have nothing to hide. The little typing bubble popped up and disappeared several times as Vivian no doubt scrambled for a rejoinder. Vivian, we're not finished, Alara. This is just the beginning. My brow furrowed despite myself. What did she actually have up her sleeve this time? Everything okay? I startled at the sound of Nate's voice, looking up to see him hovering in the doorway with a concerned frown. Yeah, it's nothing, I lied, forcing a casual shrug as I slipped my phone back in my pocket. Just Vivian being Vivian. Nate rolled his eyes but said nothing. He knew as well as I did that even a defeated snake could still find ways to bite. The following days passed in an uneasy lull. I tried to go about my daily life as normal, but I couldn't quite shake the nagging sense that Vivian was stewing on something, laying in wait to strike. Paranoia quickly took root. Every unknown number made my breath hitch. Every whispered conversation in the halls at work put me on high alert. Then, one crisp autumn evening, the other shoe finally dropped. I was curled up on the couch, idly scrolling through social media, when a notification popped up from Jenna. Have you seen this? Attached was a link to what looked like a news article from our local paper's website. My stomach clenched as the incendiary headline jumped out at me in bold font. Family feud gets ugly. Local woman accuses cousin of corporate espionage embezzlement. Ice water flooded my veins as I numbly clicked the link.